She's a speedster in her car.
I have places to go, Mike.
She's a red.
And he should talk about speeding.
Yeah.
Well, he just doesn't have any cars that can go as fast as mine.
Anytime you'd like to race, I'll bring out my biggest garbage car.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah, anytime. Make sure you have your pink slip.
Gotta be the car you drive every day.
That's fine.
Hey, Mark, what time do you fly out?
8:30 on Tuesday morning.
Are you leaving? You coming
I'm
to
going
Florida?
at 6:15.
Yeah, next I'm going to down with Mary and Peter there for a week down.
Oh, but you're too far south to come up.
Yeah, we're Cape Coral, I think, is where we're at.
Nice.
Nice.
Everybody's leaving.
All right, we're ready to go.
Okay.
Great. Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Today is our planning and development meeting. We'll start with call to order. Are there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? We have no public meetings, no delegations, and we have the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull anything or speak to anything? Member Taylor.
Yes, I'd like to pull E 2.4, please.
Okay, 2.4. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, yes, Member Brennan. You're on mute. Sorry.
Just quickly for E11.
There's no E11. E21?
No, there is, Madam
Oh,
Chair,
sorry.
there is a one.
E11?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got the wrong one. Okay, E11. And Member Minnings.
Yes, and I have a quick item for E2.3.
Okay, E2.3.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Clerk, I guess we can do a motion on the rest of them and come back.
Yeah, so we'll deal with them under new business. So the
Yes.
motion for adoption of the agenda then will read that the agenda be adopted, including consent items with the exception of items E1.1, E2.3, and E2.4.
A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Member Brennan, second by Member Taylor. All in favor? Carried. Okay. I guess we've done approval of the regular agenda.
Yes.
Reports from officials. Planning report number P23006, deeming bylaw application 3156 South Sparrow Lake Road. Mr. Oster.
Good morning, committee. Thank you. So as some of the committee members may recall, and for the benefit of those who were not on council at the time when this development first came forward, the property owners of 3156 South Sparrow Lake Road, the golf course there, were essentially seeking to relocate an existing lot further north along South Sparrow Lake Road. The existing lot is occupied by a portion of the golf course, so essentially they were looking to merge that existing lot with the overall golf course property and creating new lots just north of South Sparrow Lake Road. This would have the result of no net increase in the number of lots and no increase in the development potential on the land. As the applicant and their team worked through the conditions that were imposed by the Committee of Adjustment to ensure that there was no net increase in the number of lots, it was discovered that a portion of the golf course lands are comprised of lots on a plan of subdivision. Under the Planning Act, lots on a plan of subdivision will not merge with each other even when they're held in common ownership. So that's what this application before committee this morning is seeking, is essentially to deem those lots that are part of the golf course lands to no longer be lots on a plan of subdivision, allowing them to merge with the overall land itself in order to satisfy the conditions that were imposed by the Committee of Adjustment and ensure that the applications remain as they were originally presented to council and the committee previously. So that kind of summarizes what I have on this, but if there's any questions, more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Do any members have questions? Member Burkett.
Thank you through you, Madam Chair, to Brad. Those lots, like, I can't bring it up on my Oh, I see them. I see them now. So, like the dimensions of those lots, Bradley, but you're showing 31 lots on here along South Sparrow Lake Road, correct? But all these lots look too small, don't they?
So through the chair to Member Burkett, if I may, the bylaw before committee this morning would only deem lots 21 through 31, which are the lots that form part of the golf course land. The other lots, it appears that over the years there were some lot additions. Earlier, it looks like that increased the size of those lots, being lots 1 through 20, essentially. So those lots are existing. So if they're undersized, the bylaw would recognize them as they are today. But what we're looking at is just the new lots, or lots 21 through 31, to allow them to merge with the overall golf course land. And then they could create the new lot, which is shown as part 1 on that survey that was included as an attachment to the report.
Okay, so supplementary through you, Madam Chair, if I may. So the lots 20 from 1 to 20 then, are they on the golf course, or are they lots that are existing along South Sparrow Lake Road?
Through the chair, if I may, those lots are existing lots along South Sparrow Lake Road that have been developed with single detached dwellings over the years.
Okay. Thank you, Brad.
Anyone else have any questions? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Oh, sorry.
That would be you, Whittier.
Oh, sorry.
Wait, supplementary?
Supplementary through you, Madam Chair, if I may, to Brad. So as this application moves forward, Brad, if they meet all the requirements that were outlined by the Committee of Adjustment, what are the next steps for this landowner so that he can start to pull a building permit and hopefully start building his home? What are the next steps? Or is he finished as long as he meets the requirements of the Committee of Adjustment?
So through the chair, the Committee of Adjustment imposed a number of conditions, which are pretty standard when they hear these types of applications. The applicant has worked through and made good progress on a number of those conditions. This is one of the last conditions that they're looking to satisfy, which was that all of the retained lands must merge into one consolidated parcel to kind of collapse the existing lot that they're looking to relocate, collapse that in with the golf course land. So once they satisfy this condition, that'll be one more kind of checked off their to-do list. But then once they've satisfied all of the conditions that the committee's imposed, staff would then issue the consent certificate, which their lawyer would register on title and actually would sever the new lot. And then once that lot is severed, then they would have the development rights associated with that, as the zoning's already in place, as it was heard, almost a year ago. So the zoning's in place there. So once the lot is severed, they would be eligible for building permits.
All right. Perfect. Thank you, Brad.
You're welcome.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the motion reads that planning report number P23-006 dated February 15th, 2023, with respect to a deeming bylaw application for the lands described as lots 21 through 31, Plan 802, municipally known as 3156 South Sparrow Lake Road, be received, and that the draft deeming bylaw included as attachment 3 to planning report P23-006 be brought forward immediately. And further, that should council pass the deeming bylaw, the clerk shall be directed to provide a certified copy of the bylaw to the clerk of the county of Simcoe per section 5026 of the Planning Act.
Moving to seconder, please. Moved by Member McIntyre, second by Member Jansen. All in favor? Carried. Now we'll move on to the next request to move P23007, request to remove a consent agreement from title. Ms. Mandeville.
Good morning, everyone. I think I'm just going to share the image as the attachments from the staff report to speak to this. Okay. So hopefully everyone can see the map I just put up here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. So way back in 2013, council heard a proposal for consent or severance for the original 4022 Wayman line, which is the property outlined in a reddish kind of color here, right at the corner of Wayman and Division Road. For those who are familiar, Highway 12 is down here. So this is in the Marchmont-Bass Lake settlement area. So back in 2013, council heard the proposal, as was the process at that time, because they were seeking multiple lots within a settlement area. That went to council first before it went to Committee of Adjustment. At that point, when it went to council through a deputation from Mr. Josh Morgan, council stipulated that they only wanted to see essentially 3 lots being created instead of the 4 proposals. So essentially, this is what was originally proposed. You can see again, Division Road here at the top, Wayman line running down here. So there was proposed 2 lots on Division Road, and then 2 lots on Wayman line, with the retained lands being the then existing dwelling on the property, would basically be that 5th lot. So they were anticipating to create 4 lots at that time. Unfortunately for the applicant, council at that time felt that that was too much development on this property. There had been, I believe, some neighbor comments at that time. So essentially, council had requested that this lot be just one parcel. Right? So these 2 lots, actually, that we have that here. So this is the eventual proposal that went to Committee of Adjustment, was for 3 lots with that retained land in the middle. Lot 3 then had a consent agreement placed on it. So council at the time had directed kind of a covenant or a restrictive covenant, which is kind of a way of saying consent agreement. So basically an agreement registered on title that said they couldn't further sever or further divide this property, being lot 3. So the situation today is that there is a dwelling on lot 1, there's a dwelling on lot 2. Original dwelling is still there on Wayman line. And now the applicants have come forward and they would like to further develop lot 3 beyond the 1 lot that's currently existing there. When the planning department received this request late last year, we weren't certain how to deal with this request. So the applicant did provide a legal deposit, and we spoke with our solicitors at Russell Christie, who advised that the consent agreement is likely not legally binding, especially given the current policy framework from the province of this day and age, trying to build more houses, especially within our settlement areas, which this property is. So essentially, council needs to endorse the removal of this consent agreement from title. If they do that, then the applicants could proceed pretty seamlessly. Of course, through the regular process, they would have to apply to Committee of Adjustment. Neighbors would get notified of that circulation, and they could just proceed through the normal process. Our solicitors advise that if council chose not to remove this agreement from title, they could still apply for a severance, and they could still go through the normal process. And as part of our job reviewing the severance, being township staff, the consent agreement would not be applicable. It wouldn't be something we would comment on during the review, because as council, I'm sure, is aware, we only comment on planning policy documents. We don't comment on things that are registered on title in the review of an application. So essentially, our lawyers advise that down the road, it may cloud title. It may cause issues if they ever wanted to sell one of these properties, something like that. But essentially, in this day and age, this type of agreement is not.
Any members have any comments or questions? Member Taylor and then Member Burkett.
Yeah, just Katie, just to refresh my memory there, I thought the lot 3 there's a lot of issues with that lot. Topography, terrain, there's water streams, there's more to it than just the number of lots. I think that's why staff and council at the time deemed to make that 1 lot, not make it 2. Can you help me out on that one?
Yeah, through the chair to Member Taylor's question. Absolutely, that may be the case. I remember some constraints related to topography as well when we were hearing that application. However, that's something that would be analyzed and would have to be justified by the applicant during the consent process. That really has nothing to do with a consent agreement registered on title. If an application came forward to sever this property, they would have to demonstrate that they could build on it. They'd have to demonstrate there was no environmental constraints. They'd have to demonstrate they could get an entrance. All of those things would be looked at during that committee of adjustment process, regardless of a consent agreement being registered on title or not.
Supplemental?
And then just a last question. So then, is this something that we haven't done, but we're opening up that now it could be practiced all the time now? If we've said no on this case, but now we say, oh yeah, you can. So are we opening a can of worms here in precedent?
Through the chair to Member Taylor's follow-up question, I don't believe so. In my 10 years here, this is the only experience I recall where we had an example such as this. And I think council should remember that they placed this agreement on title without hearing the merits of a consent application. It's not as though the consent application was denied and now they're reapplying and it may be approved. It was a proposal for a potential severance application that was refused by council. It was not the actual consent application, because only the committee of adjustment could refuse an actual consent application. So I think this is a unique situation. There may be other examples where something's registered on title and therefore someone, has less development rights than they would like. And those people are always welcome to approach council and try and have that agreement altered. And then staff would evaluate each situation, each property on its own merits.
Thank you.
Member Burkett.
Thank you through Madam Chair. So Katie, thank you for that. But if my memory serves me well, I remember this application at the time, and I think rules may change, but you may be able to help me out. But at the time, if they went forward with 4 lots, that would be planned a subdivision, and there would be a huge cost involved should they follow that path. So now I'm curious, they're coming back blaming us that we didn't allow them that 4 lot. But I remember distinctly there was a cost associated with it and a whole different application if they move forward in creating 4 lots versus the 3. I'm just curious.
So through the chair to Member Burkett's question, it was a past practice of council, only a practice. There was nothing in legislation, nothing in our official plan, nothing in any provincial documents, that when there was more than 3 lots being created, they were to seek that through a plan of subdivision application rather than by consent. It is my understanding that before I became a planner, there was some rule in some provincial policy somewhere that did stipulate such a rule. So planners of an older generation than me certainly speak about that. But that did not exist in 2013, and it still does not exist today. Council could, not council, Committee of Adjustment. Committee of Adjustment could approve 10 lots through the consent process. It doesn't have to go through plan of subdivision, but that, I understand, was a past practice of council.
Thank you. I'm doing pretty good as a planner. I'm learning. Thank you. It's only taken me 13 years.
Member McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a comment. I think that it's very clever how the owners of this property have come around 10 years later to get what they wanted without going through a plan of subdivision. However, when the solicitor says we're not likely to win one if they want to tackle us on this, I have a tendency to lead towards what our lawyers say, that we may be just banging our head on the wall if we wanted to take this on. They're going to go ahead with it anyway, by the sounds of it, whether the topography is good or not. I think our job here is just to make it clear that we should or should not agree to allow them to go forward with a plan, I guess, a building permit and a severance on the lot. So I'm agreeing with what the solicitor says. We talk around it from old days, but today we really have to deal with what we've got. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? Madam Clerk.
Certainly. So the motion reads that planning report number P23-007 dated February 15th, 2023 with respect to request to remove the consent agreement from title on Wayman Line, legally described as part of the northwest half of Lot 1, Concession 1, South Aurelia, as in R08302224, Township of Severn, designated as Part 5 on Plan 51R39389 be received, and that staff be authorized to work with the Township Solicitor to remove the consent agreement from title, with all costs being the responsibility of the landowner.
May I have a mover? Moved by Member Brennan, second by Member Middings. All in favor? Carried. Opposed? Good. Now we're at G3. Presentation from Chief Building Official and Septic Inspector Septic Reinspection Program. Hello, Mr. Nick.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. So just to let everyone know, it was about a year ago we did our first presentation. Some of you remember that. And it's kind of one of those year review things that we like to do. It's a little easier doing in a PowerPoint presentation than trying to do it in the form of a report. So this year, actually, our resident expert when it comes down to doing our septic reinspection program, Amanda, is going to be actually doing that for us today. So she's compiled this presentation, and I'm going to be transferring it over to her to go through it. On the line also is our Deputy CBO, Jeff, and myself, who might be popping in. So I'll just provide a little additional commentary. So I'll pass it over to Amanda, if I may.
Good morning, Amanda.
Good morning, members. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Good. So I don't know exactly how this works to bring up the presentation. Would I open it up? I can. Sorry about this, guys.
Okay.
All right.
Madam Clerk, are we okay?
Amanda, would it be easier for me to act as your Vanna?
Yeah.
Say that again, sorry?
Would you like me to do your PowerPoint slides for you?
Yeah, sure, if you'd like.
Give me one moment here. Oh, you've got it open.
Oh, I shut it down.
Okay, second. Okay, give me one moment here, Council. Let's go for Amanda.
There we go.
Awesome. All right, so welcome to the Septic Reinspection Program Review of 2022. So the first slide will be just what today's topics are. Okay, so the basics about sewage systems, the septic reinspection program, the mandatory and discretionary on-site sewage system maintenance inspection program, the communications and outreach, the inspector's yearly timeline, the inspection itself, the invoicing, the follow-up, the septic maintenance and education, the review of the past 3 years, properties in progress, septic permits, deficiencies found, homeowners' questions and concerns, the upcoming years, and any questions. So we'll dive right in. This is the basics about sewage systems. I'm not going to explain each one because I think everyone kind of has an understanding, and there is a write-up on this slide. But what I will speak upon is that I will go through all classes that the Ontario Building Code has permitted, and then we'll just kind of touch on what's actually a normally used system within the township. So class 1 is an outhouse and privy system. These are widely found within remote locations. So I would say around Severn River, that kind of area, they're very widely located around there. Class 2 is a leaching pit, which is a gray water system. These are typically found, but they're not permitted, so they would be illegal at that point. So then class 3 is a cesspool system, not a normal class of system. These are rarely found and normally never permitted or never applied for as a permit application. Class 4 is a typical septic system. These are systems that are widely used throughout the township and the most popular system. Within these systems, they also include the advanced treatment units. I will touch on this because it is within the program, but as an exception. So what I request from homeowners are, that they supply us with a maintenance agreement and servicing reports every year. Okay, so that is the most common system. And then class 5 is a holding tank. This is quite a contentious class, but these systems are allowed, but under certain circumstances. So typically you would find them when a class 4 could not be in place on that property. Okay. So the next slide is just the basics about the septic reinspection program. So this is just a run through of how it was created, okay? So in 2006, the Clean Water Act was established. It encompasses the Drinking Water Source Protection Program, and this was, it was basically created due to the Walkerton inquiry. In 2011, the Ontario Building Code was amended and it established and regulates the mandatory on-site sewage system maintenance inspection program. The Building Code Act authorizes now municipalities to implement the discretionary on-site sewage system maintenance inspection program, and that's what you guys would have passed in 2020. The township implemented the discretionary on-site or septic or sewage system maintenance inspection program, and that was the bylaw 2020-28. So the mandatory on-site sewage system maintenance inspection program are properties within wellhead protection zones in intake areas. So wellhead protection zones are wellheads that contribute source water to drinking water systems. So these wellheads within our municipality are Severn Estates, Coldwater, Bass Lake, Woodlands. And then the intake protection areas are municipal water intakes that contribute source water to drinking sources. So these intakes within our township are Weshago, West Shore, and Sandcastle. And then we do have a little bit of an area which is not our intake, but it's Port Severn that falls within our township as well. Okay, so all of these properties in 2020 of the mandatory inspections were conducted in 2020, and then it's every 5 years they get re-inspected. So the discretionary, which was the bylaw that council passed, this includes any property that is serviced by a sewage system that directly fronts upon following water bodies of water within the municipality. So that's Severn River, Gloucester Pool, Little Lake, McLean Lake, Mactash Bay, Lake Couchiching, Lake St. George, Green River, Black River, Sparrow Lake, and Tea Lake. So communications and outreach. This is a big one because we've, in 2022, we made it one of our main focuses to increase the public awareness about the program. I know in previous years it was just starting, and I think there was a little confusion with the actual the program itself. So in 2022, we started bumping the outreach up. So our standard outreach would have been our typical mailouts to the affected properties and then the inspection itself. And then the community or the communications outreach that Tracy, our communications officer, have reached out and promoted would have been, or now is, the township website, news articles in the community villager publication, emailed media releases, and then articles within aureliamatters.com and simcoe.ca, and then also little blurbs in the tax inserts, and then also on social media. So those ones would include Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And it has ultimately been estimated that the outreach has reached over 17,000 readers. So that's pretty good. Hats off to Tracy for really upping the outreach. So as you can see, there is a click here button. I think you can grab that later on, but that is a further breakdown of any of the communication and outreach that Tracy has put together and put out there. Okay. So the next slide would be inspector yearly timeline. So this is basically an overview of what my position holds within the township and what I do during the year, okay? So this slide, as you can see, the top row is kind of the outline of each season throughout the year. And then the ones below would be my, my tasks throughout the year. So early spring is preparation and advisement of the inspections. So preparation would be getting the educational bags together, getting all the new property addresses, doing the mail outs, everything involved in preparing for the actual inspections itself. Spring to winter, technically, if we get that far, weather depending, the septic reinspection inspections, and then also the invoicing. Normally I get to invoicing every week just to keep on top of that. Okay, and then the last part is winter into, it kind of falls into early spring as well, is the data entry and just the preparation of closing the year out and everything. So then the row below would be public relations and the follow-up of the current year and the past years. This is a big one because it is an ongoing thing throughout the year. So it's a very large part of my job is connecting with the public and whoever is within this program and ensuring that they understand what we are asking from them. And then also the building department just support. I'm always there to support my department in any way possible. And I do that throughout the year as well. So the inspection itself. So I advise the homeowner of the inspection. So each property I go to, I knock on their door, just state why I'm there, and just be like, let them know that I am on site and what I'm doing there. So the informative overview of the program, if the property owner is there, I will explain the property or the program to them, and anything else or any questions that they have, I will overview that with them as well. And then we leave a door notice at the door if they are not home, and then also we leave educational packages. And then we confirm the paperwork when on site and the property, just to make sure everything matches up. And then once I've done that, I conduct the visual inspection. So I will actually walk around the property. I will locate the system, obviously, that is number one. I will walk around the house, any outbuildings, and then also the waterfront, just to make sure there's nothing being discharged or any other systems on the property. And then on the right here, you'll see that this is the inspection form. So I overhauled it this year so that it was nice and neat. And these inspection forms get sent out to homeowners with the invoice. Next one. So invoicing and follow up. So the cost of the program, unfortunately, is $150. This cost is mandatory to cover the cost of the actual program and the inspection itself. Any systems that are 2 years old or less would be exempt from the program. Any deficiencies, the property owner will be notified by mail, and they must take the necessary steps to correct the deficiencies within the time frame stipulated on the letter sent out. Systems that are 40 years or older must submit a pump out report from a licensed septic hauler. This is sort of a part of a regular maintenance on your system anyway, so it's not out of our reach to ask for this. Systems without records are required to get a septic site assessment and a pump out report. All properties, and I note this because I've had some issues with people thinking I'm targeting people, but all properties are managed in the same way or in the same manner within this program. But as you can tell, like, deficiencies are different and they can be unique to each property. So septic maintenance and education. So this is a big one. Regular maintenance is important in order to keep your system healthy and in working order. Septic systems are required to have ongoing maintenance, just like your furnace would at home or your car would. It's something very important that I think should be understood by homeowners and whoever has a septic system to keep that in working healthy order. So regular pump outs, we always suggest around the 3 to 5 year mark. The OBC states, whenever the sludge and scum layer is 1/3 of the working capacity, that's when you should have it pumped out. Cleaning your effluent filter is very important. Once it goes through the tank and it's going to exit your bed, a lot of these tanks have effluent filters that can collect scum and whatnot, and they end up clogging up and your system doesn't work properly. All right, keeping your septic bed free and clear of excess vegetation or any other notable items. So anything heavy on your bed, like play sets or anything along those lines, we make sure that that's under control as well. And then also erosion control, root control, and pest control. The pest control is on there because I know up north there is a big concern of chipmunks, and they like to burrow in the beds. So that is a large concern, and it's just the upkeep of keeping your bed clean and clear, and making sure there's no holes that are going to grow into something more. So. And the next one is educating the homeowners about the system. So a major part of this program is this. When I'm out on site, I make sure that when I explain to homeowners that they understand their system. So some of the things that homeowners should know is their system, the type of system they have, the location of it, how it works, what can go in it and what can't, and then obviously the regular maintenance that they should be doing on it. And then along with the verbal communication when on site, we do leave these educational packages at the homeowner's door. So this year, we put the Septic Smart brochure in there, and then also a fridge magnet or a furnace magnet, wherever you want to stick it, but that will track your pump outs. And this year we're kind of we're working with Severn Sound to get seed for promoting bees. And I know within the township we have, I think it's bee pollination or pollinators. So that one we're kind of working on getting, and then also laundry strips that are mentally friendly, so we can hopefully put those in the package as well. So normally we like to see education on there about septics, and then something along the lines of something about what's going on in the township, and then also keeping track of your tank pump outs, and then hopefully we'll have some other little goodies in there that we're working on. Okay, so the next few slides are going to be a little bit heavy in numbers, so hopefully you guys can follow. They shouldn't be too bad. I'll try and keep it very basic, and if you have any questions, just let me know. So this is a review of the past 3 years. So this cuts down into the numbers and how many were inspected and completed and still in progress and whatnot. So in 2021, as you've seen before, we did the mandatory and discretionary inspections. In 2021 and 2022, they were just discretionary. So in 2022 or 2020, the mandatory inspections consisted of 201 properties and there were 10 exceptions. So in total, there was 191 inspected, and then the exceptions were 7 advanced treatment units and 3 new systems. So out of the inspected, there was 175 that were completed, and then 16 are still in progress. And then 100 out of the completed, 112 are in good standings, and then 63 complied with the program. Okay, so then out of the 191 properties, only 2 had high-risk deficiencies noted on site. So when I talk about on site, this is when I'm out on site and I'm noting these deficiencies. Later on, if I follow up, if they have no records, I could find deficiencies at that point, and that is not within this count. Okay, so the next one is the 2020 discretionary inspections. So there were 89 properties that surrounded Lake St. George that year, and there were 19 exceptions. So there was 70 inspected, and out of the exceptions, there was 13 advanced treatment units and 6 new systems. So 60 have been completed and 10 are still in progress. Out of the completed, there are 35 in good standings, and then 25 complied with the program. So out of the 70 that were inspected, only 2 had high risk deficiencies noted. So then in 2021, discretionary only, there were 384 properties and 46 exceptions. So there were 338 inspected, and then out of the 46 exceptions, there were 20 advanced treatment units and 26 new systems. And then out of the inspected, there was 260 completed and 78 are still in progress. And then out of the completed, there are 217 in good standings, and 43 of them complied with the program. So that is 338 properties inspected, and then only 11 had high-risk deficiencies noted on site. So then in 2022, this last year or past year, there was 442 properties, 57 exceptions. So in total, there was 385 inspected, and then out of the 57 exceptions, there was 26 advanced treatment units, and then 31 new systems. So out of the inspected, there was 223 completed, and then 162 still in progress. So out of the completed, there was 165 in good standings, and then 58 complied with the program. So out of the 385 properties inspected, only 9 had high-risk deficiencies noted on site. So I'll touch on the properties in progress because they're still ongoing. I deem this one, working with the property owners is key in having full compliance with this program. We don't like to enforce as much as we would like to just work with the homeowners. So certain circumstances can pose delays in completing the work that has been requested. Some of these reasons are listed below. The pandemic really threw a wrench for some people. Severity of the issues, like that could take time to work through issues. The shortage of contractors, so haulers and installers. I know installers have been so busy lately with installing new systems and whatnot. Homeowner availability, unoccupied properties, the cost of it, seasonal cottages, the seasons, winter, some of these properties are not accessible at all. And then obviously the last one would be ownership changes. I know that the market had skyrocketed there for a while, so housing was being changed over a lot. So So on the right here, you'll see that this is an example of a pump out report, and then also the septic site assessment that I give out to homeowners when I request certain things. So I wanted to put that in there so you guys had a visual of what we expect from homeowners. So septic permits. So these are septic permits that are issued for the properties within the septic reinspection program. These permits include the repairs, tank replacements, and new septics. So in 2020, there was 33 issued. In 2021, there was 40 issued. In 2022, there's 25 issued. So for example, since the program started in 2020, there were 11 properties around Lake St. George that applied for septic permits. And guys, that's for such a small lake, that's a lot of permits. So this is working. So in the next few slides, these are deficiencies found, some of them that are able to be visually seen. This one here is on the right, you'll see this is a composting unit. What happens is it gets filled with peat. You crank it every so often to get the matter mixed up in there. And then what happens is there's a drawer at the bottom right that you pull out and you discard of the broken down matter. And by the time it gets to that point, it's pretty broken down apparently. So as you can see in this picture, there are a couple black pipes exiting this area. There's one that's exiting from the actual building, so that would most likely be a gray water. And then there's one actually exiting from the unit itself. So that would be a wastewater. So any liquids coming from that would be discarded. So those two pipes, if you follow that down into the next picture, it was directed into the woods to a garbage can lid. And when I picked up the garbage can lid, underneath, I found a steel, looks like a steel drum and it's filled with aggregate. So I would assume they're just using this as a makeshift leaching pit, essentially. So obviously that is not legal. We want to see that treated properly. So that's something we would follow up with. So the next one is steel tanks. By this time, steel tanks are not allowed. And by this point in their age, they would be so deteriorated that most likely they wouldn't be functioning as they should be. So holes would be created and whatnot. So this one is an example of a cottage. It was disconnected. They were doing work on the cottage, I believe, but it wasn't decommissioned. Some of these tanks, you go out there and you don't even notice that they're there until you either probe it or the records indicate that it is indeed a steel tank. So this one, I found it was disconnected, but it wasn't decommissioned. So basically there's an empty hole sitting under the ground. At this point with these kind of tanks, they can become so deteriorated that when you walk over it, there is a chance that they could collapse. So this is why this is something that we look at and we want to control so we don't get the seepage from any tanks that are still in use, and then also eliminating the danger for homeowners and whoever visits the property. So the next one would be exposed septic tanks. So this one I find a lot of tanks are exposed on the top. As you can see, all three of these are exposed. The first one is just the top. So what we like to see is it just covered in soil. You can have access hatches to your lids just to make sure that it's easy access for pumping. The next one is a plastic tank. This one's more than half exposed and it looks to be not installed correctly. So this is like stuff that we would like to see covered up and managed properly. And then the third one, is exposed fully on the top. It looks like they possibly will be building a deck over it. And then also the middle lid, they had used a plastic covering to seal, I guess, the lid properly to the tank. And then the end is like almost like a steel sheet that was covering the other hole. So this is stuff we want to see covered. It just If you cover it, it's not exposed to the elements and any forces. So if it gets hit or something along those lines, we just don't want to see them damaged and then cause any further deficiencies. So outdoor showers, this was a popular one this year. They kind of all look the same, but they are indeed all different. All of these showers were not noted within the septic file and how they dispose of the gray water. So what we like to see is this linked into at least a system to make sure that all of this gray water is being treated properly. So none of these had records, none of these were legit. So they were most likely illegal, sorry. So gray water and leaching. So the first two pictures that you see here, these are pipe. The first one is piping exiting from a house, and it goes into like a corrugated pipe. Those pipes lead into the forest beside the house, and then these are getting leached into the side lot. So they're just anything that's going in their shower or their sinks, they're just discharging it right into the forest. And then the last picture there, that is a typical septic bed, but one of the runs had been exposed, and it's just basically running out onto the surface of the ground. So those are things that we like to see corrected, covered up, and making sure that it's just not leaching right in on top of the soil. These last pictures on the left here, basically what I found was it was a garage. There was a bathroom unit, so a shower, toilet, sink, and then they had a pit. So the stone that you see on the right side of that picture is just a pit, and basically everything coming from that bathroom was being discharged into that pit there. So this was not in a permit form. It was not a legal system. So basically we want to correct that and make sure it's either linked into the actual system that they had, the legal system, or removed completely. And the the picture on the right was a property I visited that had many outbuildings. This was basically a dinette kitchen area where they had a sink, and basically they were just discharging that right into the ground. And the blue in the back is the Severn River, and I bet you it was about 5-6 meters from the river. So we just want to correct that. We want to make sure that gray water is getting treated properly and that it is at the setback required. So homeowners' questions and concerns. So this is kind of some of the questions I would receive from homeowners, and then basically the answers that we have been giving to homeowners. This just kind of sums up some of the main questions and concerns. So the $150 fee is a money grab for the township. I pay enough taxes. Why isn't it a part of them? The answer, the fee is intended to cover a portion of the program. The costs incorporate inspectors' time, transportation cost, a portion of the administrative fees, including paper, printing, postage, supplies, etc. This cost is included or is not included on taxes, as not everyone has a privately owned sewage system. So they'd be on sewers within the township, most likely. So next question, I'm on a fixed income. When does this need to be paid? The answer is the payment needs to be paid within 60 days of invoicing. Any outstanding balances will be added to the property tax account, where penalty or interest will accrue at 1.5% per month. Can I pay online? At this point, we are not taking online payments. It's something that we are working towards. So the option of submitting payments are at the township office by cash, debit, or check, or sending out a check in the mail to us. Why do I need a pump out and or an assessment? My system is working fine. The answers for that would be sewage systems that are 40 years or older require a pump out report to be completed by licensed septic or sewage hauler. Then submit that pump out report to the township. This is to ensure that your H system is working properly as it should be. And then systems without records are required to get a septic site assessment completed by a licensed septic contractor, and a pump out be completed by a licensed sewage hauler, then submit both reports into the township. And this is just to ensure that you actually have a legal functioning system and to create a record for your system so the township can file that on file. So the next questions, why am I a part of this program? Your property is either within the mandatory or the discretionary maintenance on-site sewage system maintenance inspection program area within our township. If your property is near a wellhead or a water intake, you would be a part of the mandatory inspections. If your property is on waterfront along certain chosen waterways, you would be within the discretionary inspection area. So the next one, can the inspectors just go out on the property without me there? The answer is yes. The Ontario Building Code Act in section 1510(1)(1) allows the inspector to enter upon land at any responsible time without a warrant for the purpose of conducting these maintenance inspections. Will I receive notice of when my inspection will be? Yes. A notice will be sent out in the mail in early spring to notify all properties within the affected areas that year. Due to the sheer number of inspections, appointments will not be made. So no appointments will be made. So the inspector was only there 5 minutes to inspect. Well, if the inspector was only there a short time, that could indicate that a positive inspection was conducted. When on site, the inspector ensures that your property has records for your septic or sewage system, and that the location and the layout matches what is on file. And if there are no deficiencies, if all of that is confirmed, then they will complete their on-site inspection. If any deficiencies are noted, you will receive a notice in the mail detailing the deficiencies and how to rectify that. And while your property may have been a compliant review, inspectors do also have many systems that require a more extensive or exhaustive review and require additional time to access and follow up. So those are just some questions and stuff that you guys maybe asked that is a good review for you guys as well, so that you have a better understanding of what our answers are within our department. So then the upcoming years, 2023 and 2024. 2023, there are 439 properties, and that's surrounding Lake Sparrow and Severn River. In 2024, there are 452 properties. So that's surrounding Lake Couchiching, Matatash Bay, and Green River and Black River. So just keep in mind that these counts do include exceptions. I don't really get to go through the exceptions until I actually start going through each property, as I'm doing right now, and entering the data in and making sure that everything is correct with these properties. So then at the bottom there, you'll see that there are 63 island properties still outstanding. These properties, we have to just figure out how we are going to reach them and what we're going to do with those properties. They will be inspected though. So just keep that in mind. So that concludes my presentation. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of a better understanding of the program. If you guys have any questions, that would be great, and hopefully we can answer those for you.
Okay, any members with questions or concerns? Member Taylor, then Member McIntyre.
Thanks, and good morning, Amanda. Nice to meet you.
Good morning.
Question for you. First one, the mandatory wellhead protection, isn't there one that's located in Severn that supplies Ermidonte at Warminster Side Road and Town Line. Would that be included? Was that also a wellhead protection zone as well?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor. So that one does not affect any properties in that area.
Okay, but there are properties nearby there, but that's okay. The second thing I've had a lot of issues with people complaining about the $150, and but the 150, I think the total income that we generated based on the budget, we get $57,000, and it doesn't cover the program. So I'm still okay with the 150. But then when we're asked for pump outs and stuff, but now you clarified the pump out that technically, if it's working okay, as long as you have a record, it's 40 years. But the problem is, if the system's working and people buy a system that hasn't got the records, then we are ordering them to have a pump out, which is between $400 and $600. So now that's another cost. But the main question I've got is that sewage systems without records are required to get septic assessment completed by licensed septic contractor. So what exactly does that mean? Because I know there's an issue I've got with a couple on McLean Lake that the township is asking for a drawing of the septic bed, but they say, well, it's visually, you can see it there. And if they've got the pump out, then it's working right. I think we're overreaching in some areas there, in my opinion. And now this is adding up to a couple $1,000s, where first I thought the system's costing $150. And the good news is that you found some hot spots, which are great that we did that. But at some point, are we becoming an overreach from the township is what I'm getting at.
Okay, so through the chair to Councillor Taylor, through this program, I'll kind of go through both scenarios with you. So systems that are older, so 40 years and older, we are requesting that pump out report, okay? This is, I would say this is normal maintenance. So I am accepting pump outs within the last 2 years of the inspection as well, right? So like if they had one 2 years before, I'll accept that report, and all they have to do is contact a local hauler that they had to pump out their tank, and then they'll write up a report and they'll send that in to me, right? So beyond that, I think it's part of the maintenance of your system, and these older systems can start to fail around that age. So that's why we're requesting that pump out report. We're just making sure that the system is working as it should. A lot of the indications will be within that pump out. When the hauler actually pumps it out, there are lots of indications whether their system's working properly or not. This is part of the enforcement of the program, the upkeep of your system, and ensuring that these older systems are working as they should, right? And then the second part is the site assessment. So these are properties that don't have records on file. So there have been many properties that I have requested the pump out and the site assessment from, that they look like normal systems, they're functioning normal for the homeowner, but when you actually get down into the assessment and you have contractors go out there, it's like a one-line system that isn't legal at all, that has been functioning like that for years. So this is why we for one, we want to have a record on file for what the system is, and we want to ensure that that is a legal functioning system on site. And I'd like to know also that back in the day, the health unit did the permitting process, and some of those permits did not reach the township. And luckily, homeowners have been due diligent enough to keep these records on file. And I've actually received a few from homeowners so that then I get the records from them, and then we don't have to follow through with the assessment or the pump out for them, as long as they're under the age as well. So I don't
follow up.
Yeah, just so back to the pump out. Are you saying that the septics have to be pumped out every 3 to 5 years, regardless of anything?
As per the Ontario Building Code, they state that as long as your system is functioning normal and you're below that 1/3 scum layer, then you could leave it, but ultimately, at that point of within the 3 to 5 years is when you would probably reach that point. So it's regular maintenance, like same with changing your filter in your furnace or your upkeep on your car. This is stuff that needs to be done in order to have your system working properly.
Yeah, I'll just kind of echo
supplemental.
Yes.
Oh no, just I know that like with mine, you have to dig down to find the two lids to it, and I'm not sure if that's daily maintenance. The old hauler from up here said if it's working right, you leave it alone.
Yes, Nick.
Yeah, I can tell you, I've heard that argument a number of times. I can tell you, going with the septic tank access, when the code was amended in 2007, it actually put a requirement there where the access lids have to be better accessible. And where you used to see them 5 feet down, now you actually have to put risers up so that at least it's a little bit closer to the surface. And one of the reasons was because of that particular issue. If you have to dig 5 feet down, and the code says once that tank is 1/3 full, it requires it, not that you should, it requires it to be pumped out. People were doing that. And I can tell you, I've seen concrete poured on top of septic tanks and put patios on, and you kind of look at it going, they haven't pumped this out in 20 years. So you kind of know that's going to be the case. And just, I echo again to Amanda's point there, is it's like changing oil in the car. It's a requirement there. I've heard the argument, just leave it alone. But the tank has a capacity that it can have. Otherwise, your septic tank, which is treatment unit number 1 in a septic system or a class 4 system, it actually has a function, and it's got to have 2 days content in there. And that 2 days content eventually kind of flows over to your leaching bed. So there's a part where all the math kind of works out. And you want that tank pumped out every couple of years or every 3 to 5 years, which is industry standard, in order to make sure that is working as part of it.
Follow up, Member Taylor?
Just one last question. So what happens if the buildup is high? What do you see if the sludge is too high? What would the homeowner see? Or what would you see?
Yeah, so through the to Council Taylor. So basically, you're either going to see backups in the house because your system's clogged up. And then obviously your system's not going to function properly. So once that layer gets too thick, your tank's not going to function and not put the output into your bed. So therefore back up into your house.
Yep, I kind of knew that, but thank you. I've said enough here. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Oh, yes, Member McIntyre, sorry.
Through the chair, I just wondered if I'm a candidate for Amanda's. We had an inspection on my cottage, and I was in attendance when she came by. And clearly, I have to replace my septic system. If there's going to be a vote here, do I have to recuse myself in any way that because of my need, and I've fallen under this sort of need to replace my tank. I just don't want. I'd rather have a ruling from the clerk because I'm one of them, and if there's a vote to be taken, I just want it clear that I'm not annoyed with anybody. I know it has to be done because Amanda brought it to our attention. But at this moment, do I or do I not, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the clerk doesn't make rulings or give opinions on conflict of interest matters, just for council's information. That's a personal choice. And if you require assistance, then that is what your integrity commissioner is available to you for. That said, today's motion is just to receive the presentation for information. So
I'm good.
I'll leave that with you to read between the lines.
Yeah.
Very good.
And I think that there would probably be not a quorum if we all did it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's no different than if councils, like there are some general principles out there. And again, I could ask the Integrity Commission to give some general guidance, but you're all taxpayers. So like you wouldn't have to vote on the tax. You couldn't recuse yourself from the tax rate. Or if everyone was on water sewer, like you couldn't recuse yourself from voting for the rate bylaw. at some points things are so generic that things
Okay.
are like that. But if you'd like further information, then I strongly suggest that you contact the Integrity Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Burkett.
Thank you through Madam Chair, and thank you, Amanda, for the presentation. If we remember why we started down this path with the blue-green algae that was happening both in Lake St. George and McLean Lake, and I'm thankful. I don't think any of our residents want to pollute what we have here in Severn or anywhere in this world. So thank you for that. My question is under the properties in progress. So, like, I would assume that if something is leaching or is not working well, you've got cost here. Like, we would have safeguards where they would have to do something so that sewage isn't running freely into the lands. Am I to understand this properly?
Yep. So through the chair to Mayor Burkett. So if something is deficient, and say if it was in the case like you described, if it was leaching or like an obvious concern, that is something where we would take the necessary steps to correct that. We could go as far as placing an order on the property to rectify that situation. That's kind of why this program is in place, to find those issues and to correct them as soon as possible.
So supplementary, if I may, so through you, Madam Chair. So all of these that are a problem in the properties in progress, so it must take up a lot of your time to go back, or how do you oversee all of this? Like, how are you going back to make sure that they're not doing something to the lands?
Through the chair to Mayor Burkett, sorry. I do have a spreadsheet. I track each year, each property, the deficiencies with the properties. Not all of these deficiencies are to the point of, say, leaching. Some of these, the high risk ones are more of the ones that I really pay attention to, but the ones in progress, they can be the 40 years and older. They just haven't supplied a pump out report or the site assessment, which I'm requiring the assessment done, or the actual the pump out as well. Other things could be leaching pitch that need to be removed and disconnected from the building. Just stuff. There's several examples that I have indicated through the program that certain deficiencies that we follow up with. If these are not high risk deficiencies, I do not. I continuously address them. So I will send letters out to each property, just noting, hey, you haven't done this yet. We want to work with homeowners, so we want to do this as nice. We don't want to issue orders on every property, right? That's what I'm trying to get at. We want to work with the homeowners, and we like this compliance as easy as possible. So.
Supplementary through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that, Amanda. And I appreciate that you're working with the homeowner rather than being hardball trying to, and people are struggling, right? So, but thank you for that. But just a question to Nick, if I may. Some of the cottage homeowners, and if they have skirting around their cottage, and I know that I think I've asked you this before, we're not able to take that skirting off to see where their gray water is going. And I do know of one where the gray water is going into the rock, yet they have a holding tank. In the building, I guess the building, what do you call it? The book that you have doesn't allow you the authority to take that skirting off. Is that correct? Like how would we, and we're not able to look underneath it. We're not able to take that skirting off. So I'm just not sure how do we fix some of these problems that we know about.
Go ahead, Nick.
Thank you. Through the chair, over to Member Burkett. You are correct. We're not going to be removing. It's a non-destructive inspection is what we are doing. In the case that you would be talking about, I have seen it. Having done septic reinspection programs, if there's skirting, we look for signs or evidence that might be the case. I can think of one in particular where I know of, I was able to see underneath in the crawl space. You kind of see there's plumbing going in. There was one example where Amanda did actually show it was coming out. There was another one I remember from last year where you can see pipes, and that's where you start asking a few questions. You see little triggers or something in what you are able to see that you're going to maybe ask some supplementary questions to the property owner, and maybe you get a bit more information of it. Sometimes the property owner knows, sometimes the property owner does not know. It's very different. But as you do it, you see little signs which kind of maybe start making you ask additional questions. But we are not removing, skirting around it. But if we can see it or it's visible, by all means, I think we'll do that. But we'll look for other signs or telltale signs as we can. And I'm sure Amanda has probably seen tons of it, so I'll let her, I'll leave it to that.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll put a little input there. Sorry, guys. So when I'm out on inspections, that is one thing that I do is I look around the house and any outbuildings. So if there is skirting and it is, I can see through it, or if there's cracks or anything, I assure you, I try to look in as many nooks and crannies as I can to understand what's going on below these raised cottages as well, right? Unfortunately, we can't catch everything with this just visual inspection alone. This is something that if there are certain things like this pop up that people know, complaint-based input would be a great thing for us to follow up on as well. I know last year I had a few of those and I had to follow up on them. And yeah, they ended up being certain deficiencies with those systems. So like if someone hears about something coming to the township or on the website, logging these complaints is a great way to start the progress or process of correcting these issues that other people know about.
Thank you. Is that it, Member Burkett?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or concerns? I just have a couple of things. When you say, Amanda, that if it's 2 years or less, you don't worry about it, but yet it's 3 to 5 years for a pump out. Why would it not be 5 years? I mean, a system that's 5 years old is pretty brand new too. I'm just thinking, like, I don't, like you're saying one thing and then, but it's only 2 years. I just was curious about that. Nick?
And I'll maybe take this one, Amanda, but I'm sure you're going to kind of, we've actually had this discussion in our office as well in terms of 2 years. And I think what we are doing at this point in time is anything we are doing right now, we are trying to, if we see something that we think might need to be changed, we are going to flag it. And we actually have a little list that we're compiling already. I think that is one that we all were involved in it have kind of said, we better look at this again. And the 5-year mark has come up. I can tell you on that end of things to get it coincide with the pump out records as well. So we are looking at that. Okay. At this point in time, we're just trying to keep our first phase, our first go at it over the next 5 years, doing the exact same thing as much as possible. And then when 5 years comes up, I think we're probably going to have a little roundtable discussion here and say, what do you think we should change? And I think, and we're probably going to have a few changes we're likely going to be bringing up in 2025, I believe it is.
Okay. That just sort of popped up at me. The other one I have was this PowerPoint that you just gave us with the questions and all that information. Is there a chance you might think about utilizing that type of utilizing parts of this to hand out to the property owner? Because that part that is the common question, instead of Amanda saying it 57,000 times, if people see that these questions are there and there is an answer for them, that might be something. And also to see some of those discrepancies, even if we have to crop it so you can't see around. Because I believe in this day and age, climate and environment are very important to people. And I think that if they understand, and I'm sure they do, but maybe some don't, is that we need to keep our waterways safe. We need to keep even our wetlands around our cottages safe. We need all this to be safe. And I once I read this, a lot of things that I had people complain to me about, or I was ready to ask questions about, disappeared because I saw this. And the amount of inspections that Amanda has done, 400, like, I mean, those those to me just clarify all the concerns, or anybody who would, like, I'm going to print this and carry it with me so that if anybody asks, I've got this. But so I'm just wondering maybe if it's something you might think about you doing that with your education.
So to the chair, that is a great source of information for homeowners. And I think handing them out within these educational packages might be a great thing as well.
Well, it'd help me.
Yeah. And then I think also maybe even adding it to the website so that that could be like if people are visiting and looking it up on there, it could answer their questions there as well. So I appreciate that input. And I think that's maybe something that we will include within our packages, because I think that's
Thank you very much. Okay, Member Burkett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to thank you, Amanda. That, like I say, that just clarified a ton of things for me, and it was very informative. Thank you, Nick, and we appreciate you helping us keep our environment clean. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the motion reads that the presentation from Amanda Renton, Septic Inspector, and Nick Ippolito, Chief Building Official, regarding the septic reinspection program be received for information.
A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Member Taylor, seconded by Member Jansen. All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we go to new business. H1, report from Member Taylor, refloating container cottages.
Okay, thank you through the chair, to the committee. The mayor and I sit on a floating cottages strategy committee, and two of the recommendations were to send a letter to Minister Smith on the provincial side, and then that we've been asked to send a letter on the federal side to the Minister of Transport Canada, because between the two of these levels, that's where the problem is. And I'm hoping that the committee and staff could look at the proposed letter there, adjust as seen fit, like we did in the past, and get this off to the minister, and hopefully get a decision on what a vessel is, and why they're calling this thing a vessel is unbelievable. We're talking about gray water on a septic system, and now if it's deemed a vessel, they can pump gray water parked on the shore. Like, it's ridiculous. So hopefully the committee can had a chance to review that, and I think in the past our clerk prepared a letter and it got sent out in November, December, I think, Alison. So I'll leave it for the committee if they've got any questions with what we proposed here, and hopefully we can get an agreement.
Okay. Thank you. Member Burkett.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. Just to add to Member Taylor's comments, and I'm not sure if we're able at Good Roads, Madam Clerk, but would there be an opportunity to speak or have a delegation to speak to Minister, I've forgotten his name now. Smith, thank you. Minister Smith, is that something we could also do, or no? Or do we know yet if a delegation is even possible?
Through you, Madam Chair, I haven't seen anything. I believe you're talking about the AMO conference in the summer. We haven't seen
Good
anything
Roads.
For Good Roads. I haven't seen anything about delegations to Good Roads.
All right, but if there
at this point in time.
But that's good if we keep it in mind for AMO.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, yes.
Anyone else? Thank you to Member Taylor and Member Burkett. This is a very good idea, and the letter is wonderful. So thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can just get a motion passed, that would be great.
Yes, go ahead.
So just motion reads that correspondence respecting the issue of floating container cottages be sent to the Minister of Transport Canada, the Honorable Omar, I'm never going to say his last name right, Alghabra. Copy sent to MP Adam Chambers, the Honorable Jill Dunlop, MPP, and the Georgian Bay Association.
May I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Member Taylor, seconded by Member Brennan. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll go back to the consent agenda? No?
Yes. So we had E1.1, which was pulled by Member Brennan first.
Brennan. Okay. Go ahead, Member Brennan.
Yeah, thank you. I really just wanted to compliment staff on the staff report and extend my appreciation on our behalf to the mayor, the deputy mayor, and to Lori in their meeting with Jill Dunlop on December, what day was it? Early in December. Anyway, I think that it was right on the money. And it's interesting, just wanted to note in a recent submission, the executive summary of the AMO 2023 pre-budget submission, just to show I think we're really on the right track and need to stay there. I mean, hopefully Minister Dunlop will get back to us. That would be great, but we seem to be on the right side of things. Here's what AMO says in their executive summary that's consistent with those efforts. AMO will continue to shine a bright light on what is wrong with legislative changes that are based on a false premise. The provincial government's assertion that the housing supply crisis can be solved by limiting municipal access to infrastructure financing, eliminating environmental protections, or changes to municipal governance is unsound, unquote. Also, quote, AMO continues to call on the province for clarity about the province's commitment to fully offset financial losses associated with Bill 23 and openness to reversing legislative changes that have unintended consequences, unquote. So clearly we need to continue on this line and do what we're doing and advocate like AMO is, and hopefully positive things will come out of it in the not too distant future. Anyway, thanks again to everybody who put work into that.
Thank you. Do we go on to the next one then, Madam Clerk?
I just need a motion to receive.
Yeah, we need a motion for this one? Okay, thank you.
So the motion reads just that report CAO 2023-01 regarding Bill 23 meeting with North Simcoe MPP Dunlop be received for information that staff bring back any follow-up information when received.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Member Brennan, second by Member McIntyre. All in favor? Carried. And then I think we had E 2.3.
Yes.
2.4, which was
2.4.
the, oh, sorry, 2.3.
No,
Apologies.
2.3. Member Minnings?
Member Minnings.
Thank you. So question on 2.3. So the Severn Sand Environmental Association, specifically the minutes from their October 27th, 2022 meeting that were attached. The representative in those minutes for Severn Township was former Councillor Ron Stevens, and I'm just asking who the new rep is for that committee.
It's Member Taylor.
Thank you. Good.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Motion reads that the Severn Sand Environmental Association minutes from the October 27th, 2023 Joint Municipal Service Board meeting be received for information.
Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Member Jansen, seconded by Member Burkett. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, 2.4, Member Taylor.
Thank you, through the chair. This is a good news email. Here, Hydro One listened to the residents and landowners in the Tower Line area, and they've made a decision they're not going to be using any herbicide under the hydro lines. Like, it's unbelievable, and it took a lot of work, and I want to thank the Gloucester Pool Cottagers Association for being relentless there, and Hydro One listened, and they're acting. So hooray, it's a good news once again for the area residents and for the environment.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the motion reads that the correspondence from the Gloucester Pool Cottagers Association regarding Tower Line Road hydro works be received for information.
Mover, please, and a seconder. Moved by Member Taylor, second by Member Jansen. All in favor? Carry.
Thank you.
No closed session, so we're in adjournment.
Yeah, so motion just reads that this meeting being is hereby now adjourned at 10:27.
Mover, please. Moved by Member Brennan, seconded by Member Burkett. All in favor? There we go. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yes, take care, everyone.
Have a good